Hey there, welcome back to my channel Jahanavi's School of Thought. I hope you are doing well. And in the British poetry, in Unit 1, today we are going to see lesson number 2, Neoclassicism and Romanticism. In this, our lesson number 1 was about Renaissance and Reformation. If you haven't checked, please go and watch those videos. They are in my Play Store, British Poetry. So today we are going to see about lesson number 2, Neoclassicism, and there is another part, Romanticism. In this lesson you will be seeing objectives, introduction and stages of Neoclassical period, 3 stages: the Restoration period, the Augustan age, the age of Johnson, and beginnings of Romanticism, the main characteristics of Neoclassicism, characteristics of Romanticism, and Romanticism and literature. In this particular video, you will be seeing about Neoclassicism and 3 stages. In another video, you will be knowing about Romanticism. So shall we start? So after Renaissance period, there was Reformation period, which you know. After Reformation, Neoclassicism arose. Like neo means new and classic refers to the period of ancient Greek and Latin literature. So during the 18th century, a new movement swept through Europe and created a radical change in politics, science and art. The Age of Enlightenment was partially a reaction to the Industrial Revolution, as the world witnessed the importance of technological innovation. So this is age of reason and enlightened thinking dominated Europe. While neoclassical art was more rooted in paying homage to classical Greece, Roman art, and the Romantic era placed the emphasis on emotions like fear and horror in visual form. Even today, both periods have influenced many contemporary artists for their exceptional beauty and elaborate drama. So overall, neoclassicism is nothing but new classical age, which took inspiration from ancient Greek and Latin literature. The neoclassical movement began after Renaissance in English literature. So this period mostly emphasized the individual in the context of society. The individual was thought to be limited in his potential, that there was not much freedom because they have took inspiration from Greece and Roman. So there was not much freedom, we can say. And the characteristics of neoclassicism are inspired by ancient Greece and Rome. Just now we have discussed. So neoclassicism revived the style, values of classical civilization. The artists and writers studied ancient architecture, sculpture, literature to guide their own work. Secondly, emphasis on reason and logic. There was more stress on logical thinking. So rational thinking was considered the highest form of expression, and it was more focused on moral and civic themes. So whereas if you compare in Romanticism, it's quite different from neoclassicism. So in neoclassicism, the works were often portrayed themes like duty, justice and public responsibility. Even in their writing works, these themes were more expanded and elaborated. And fourth characteristic is the simplicity and clarity in style. Basically, they have took inspiration from Greece. So neoclassical works avoided excessive decoration. Like if you see in Romanticism, they would be quite of a drama and everything. But in neoclassicism, it was not that much. Paintings used clean lines and symmetry. If you see in artwork also, there were more of simple lines. Next, the fifth characteristic is idealized human figures. Like artists, whoever were there at that point of time, they portrayed the human body in perfect form, like balanced, graceful and dignified. And this reflected the belief that physical beauty could express inner virtue. Structured literary forms, because they're more often they stick to strict rules like rhyme schemes, meter and logical organization of words and letters. Even writers aimed for elegance and control in language. There was a strict structured rules and regulations to write, even in writing literature. Use of historical and classical subjects. Stories from history and classical literature were common. These subjects were chosen to teach lessons or reflect timeless values. Basically, they have portrayed the old Greece and Rome culture and their literary works. So, control of emotion. There was not much freedom to express. So, emotions were expressed with restraint and dignity. They're more of strict rules, and in a dignified way, the works would speak up. The goal was to inspire and reflection, not overwhelm the audience. So basically, if you see the works which were in neoclassical period, there were more often very dignified in manner. It's not that they didn't have that freedom to express drama, or to create any drama, fictional stories. Now let's just go to stages of neoclassical period. Firstly, the Restoration period. The Restoration period in English literature started in 1660, just after the Renaissance period, when King Charles II came back to power after years of strict Puritan rule. Because if you see, after Renaissance period, there was a quite reaction of that was the Reformation period, in which Puritans and they have reformed all the changes which were happening in the churches, all that thing which was happened in Renaissance period. So after that, a Restoration period took place. It lasted until around 1700. This time is called Restoration because it restored from monarchy. Monarchy was restored. The king returned, so did fun, art and theatre. So before 1660, England was ruled by Puritans, who banned theatre, music and dancing. In 1660, Charles II became king again, and people started enjoying life and entertainment. Of course, they took help from Greek. The literature work was inspired from them, but they enjoyed life, and entertainment was restored. Theatres reopened, women acted on stage for the first time, and writers began creating bold, witty works in this Restoration period. Their writings were free from speculation and imagination and imbued with realism. The main writers of this period were Dryden, Butler, William Temple. So we will see about them. Before that, we'll see about main features of Restoration period. First thing is the witty nature and funny writing. Writers used clever jokes and sharp humor to talk about society. They made fun of rich people, fake manners and silly behavior. So these were the writings which were popular in that period of time. Real life topics were more interested. Literature showed real people with real problems, love, money, politics, and there was a satire nature. Satire means using humor to criticize something in a humorous way. Writers used satire to talk about politics, religion and social issues. A new type of play that showed how rich people behaved in society. There was comedy of manners and the rise of prose. So writers started writing essays, diaries and news articles. Prose became more popular than poetry during this Restoration period. So these are the characteristics: the satire way, the witty way and the rise of prose. Now let's see the writers. The first one is John Dryden. He was known as the leading literary figure of the time in the Restoration period time. He wrote poems, plays and literary criticism. His famous works are Absalom and Achitophel, Macflecknoe. If you remember these writers, it will be useful for you people. So the writers are John Dryden, Afraben, William Congreve, Samuel Pepys. So their famous works are Orinoco. William Congreve is known for witty dialogue and clever characters, because there should be slight satire in a humorous way. So he was known for it. He was master of Restoration comedy. And Samuel Pepys, he wrote a detailed diary that gives insight into daily life in London, how it used to be. His diary includes events like the Great Fire of London and the plague. Next comes George, John, Rochester, Samuel Butler. I think you people are familiar with Samuel Butler because his famous work Hudibras, a mock heroic poem criticizing Puritanism. We have discussed his name in the Puritanism in Reformation period too. He wrote satirical poetry. So this is about Restoration period. Now let's go to Augustan age. The Augustan age refers to the early 18th century in England, roughly from 1700 to 1745. It's named after Emperor Augustus of Rome, whose reign was seen as a golden age of Latin literature. So here Latin literature was more in talk. English writers during this time tried to copy the style and values of Roman writers. So named the Augustan age, it named after Emperor August of ancient Rome. English writers wanted to imitate Roman writers like Virgil and Horace. So this period followed the Restoration and focused more on order, reason, and clarity. The main features of Augustan literature are classical style, reason and logic, satire, heroic couplets, prose, and journalism, moral purpose. So basically, these are the main features of Augustan literature. Classical style, writers copied the structure and elegance of Roman poetry and prose. So here you can stress more about Roman culture, more Roman literature, and the thoughtful and balanced writing was more important than emotion. So here they gave importance to more of structure. Sharp humor was used to criticize society, politics, and human behavior. You can see in the works of writers in Augustan age. Poems were written in Paris of rhymed lines, just now we have discussed. So it was more in structure. And essays, newspapers, and magazines became more popular in this Augustan age. So basically, it named after Emperor Augustus. There were some popular genres, the satirical poetry, funny but serious poems that pointed out flaws in society. So, in a very nice, subtle way, there was a lot of fun. In the same way, there were serious poems, if you observe in the writers' works. Essays and magazines, short writings about daily life, manners, and ideas, poems that used epic style to describe small or silly events, but they were so thoughtful. Alexander Pope is Dryden's worthy successor, completing what Dryden began in terms of classical ideal. Pope dominated the Augustan age in poetry. As a result, the 18th century is rightfully known as the Age of Pope. You can say Age of Pope too, because Pope dominated the Augustan age. His works dominated. An essay on criticism, an essay on man, and the rape of Locke are his best known works, which the Neoclassical age didn't had. He is a master of heroic couplet. So Pope was a worthy successor because he perfected this form and used it for satiric and philosophical purposes. So one of the major important writer in the Augustan age is Alexander Pope. He's master of satirical poetry and heroic couplets. You should mention if you are writing any master's exam in SEM1. And next comes Jonathan Swift. He was known for a sharp satire and a political commentary. His works Gulliver's Travels, A Modest Proposal. Sixthly, we can't forget Lady Mary and Daniel Defoe, Samuel Johnson. His works you can see in your school books. Though slightly later, he carried Augustan values into mid 18th century. His famous work, he was famous for a dictionary of the English language and essays. Lastly, the age of Johnson. So it is named after Dr. Samuel Johnson, a great writer, critic, and dictionary maker. He was the central literary figure of this time. This period is also called the age of transition because literature was shifting from classical styles to emotional and personal expression. After this, we can see about romanticism. So it was more of drama. So we can say this was the a trailer kind of thing. So followed the Augustan age, which focused on reason and classical imitation. Society was changing. People wanted more natural, emotional, and personal writing. The seeds of romanticism were beginning to grow from the age of Johnson. The main features of Johnson's age is transition in style. Just now we have discussed that this age is also known as the age of transition because people are shifting from more of strict rules to emotions. Literature moved from strict rules to more freedom and feelings. So, the rise of emotions, writers began to explore personal feelings, nature, and imagination. Prose were flourished. So, the beginning or the rise of prose was in the age of Augustine, but here the essays and biographies and novels became more popular. Literature still aimed to teach and guide readers. Writers focused on everyday people and experiences. The popular genre were thoughtful writing about books, life, and society, so essays and criticism, biographies, novels, poetry, life stories of famous people became more popular, and stories about ordinary people and their struggles were also popular in this age, in this period, the age of Johnson. So, as the name suggests, the famous writers of the age of Johnson, firstly, Samuel Johnson. He is the central figure of the age. In the Augustan age, Alexander Pope was central figure. So, in this age, Samuel Johnson is the central figure. He is famous for a dictionary of the English language. Next, James Boswell, Oliver Goldsmith, Thomas Gray, William Cowper, Richard Brinsley Sheridan, George Crape is famous for The Village, The Borough, Thomas Wharton, Edward Gibbon, Hannah More, Fanny Burney, Charlotte Smith. So, poet and novelist who helped shape romantic themes is Charlotte Smith, and early novelist and diarist is Fanny Burney. So, this is it. These are the famous writers in the age of Johnson. So, simply three ages. Firstly, restoration period mainly focuses on restoration from reformation period. Next, age of Augustine or Augustine age, mainly you can say Alexander Pope, he is highlighted in this age. Next, Samuel Johnson's age because it is named after him, the age of Johnson. This is about neoclassical period. In the next video, we will be seeing about romanticism and the famous writers who took romanticism to greater heights. And there is more drama in that. So we'll compare both the periods, the neoclassical age or neoclassical period and romanticism. Thank you. If you want to know about any other topic in the English literature, please comment it down. Thank you so much.